Well, good evening. I'm Peter Thompson from the ABC's Talking Hedge program, and it's a great pleasure to be here to talk tonight to Ray Anderson. Ray, it's great to meet you. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Peter.
So, Ray, what happened in 1994 by way of an epiphany, as you call it?
Yeah. We began to hear a question from our customers that we had never heard before in 21 years. And the question, a recurring question, was, what's your company doing for the environment? And we had no answers. And at that propitious moment, this book lands on my desk. This Paul Hawkins book, The Ecology of Commerce, lands on my desk. I have no idea who Paul Hawkins is, never heard of him. Ecology, commerce, what a weird combination. But I began to thumb the book, and on page 19, I come to a chapter heading, The Death of Birth. And that's an arresting chapter heading, and I began to read, and I quickly find out that this refers to species extinction, species disappearing from this earth, never again to experience the miracle of birth. And I was captured at that point, and I read on, and I came to Hawkins' central point of his book, that the living systems and the life support systems of the earth are in decline. The biosphere itself, the global biosphere, is in decline. Now that's serious. That is the moment of epiphany for me, when I read this industrial system has to take the lead. It was for me a spear in the chest, because that's my institution. My company is part of the problem. I'm part of the problem. And we came to the conclusion that if we could really get a clear vision of sustainability and begin to move in a demonstrable, credible, measurable way towards that goal, maybe something else would happen. We would influence somebody else.
Well, let's talk about what you mean by this vision of sustainability when it comes to interface. So what does your company mean by it? What did it mean by it when you formulated the vision in the mid-90s?
Well, we wrestled with that, what that would mean for us, and we finally came to a very simple conclusion that it meant taking from the earth only that which is naturally and rapidly renewable and doing no harm to the biosphere into the indefinite future.
One of the first steps you needed to do at Interface was figure out what you did use.
Yeah.
And that's really fascinating.
I asked our chief technical officer, Mike, how much stuff did we take from the earth? That is, us and our suppliers all the way back to the mine and the wellhead. How much stuff that had to be taken from the earth and processed through this supply chain that's us to produce, at the time, $800 million in sales? He said, I don't have the vaguest idea. I said, well, would you please find out? So 3 weeks later, he comes back to me with this, this stunning figure. It's in the billions of pounds of stuff. It made me want to throw up when I heard that. It was truly distressing. And, at the time, we were something like 1/40,000th of the global economy. You multiply what we take by 40,000, and you've got a hellish situation on your hand, and it goes on to this day, basically unchecked. We define waste in a very broad sense. Anything that's not quality is obviously waste, but we went further. We said any cost that we incur that does not deliver value to our customers is waste by definition. We did frame this whole thing in terms of climbing this mountain, Mount Sustainability, higher than Everest, and meeting at that point at the top. That's the zero footprint. And we identified 7 faces of the mountain, and we worked out our tactics for tackling each of those faces. So that was revolutionary when we said, we're going to build a company here. We're going to rebuild a company that is modeled after nature. In nature, there is no waste. One organism's waste is another's food. We're going to figure out how to redesign an industrial company that operates like nature does. And furthermore, it's going to operate on sunshine the way nature does. And it's going to recycle everything the way nature does. And it's going to be benign instead of abusive to the biosphere. And it's going to be focused on resource productivity rather than labor productivity.
One of the really interesting examples of using nature as a metaphor, going into the forest, literally, what does your company mean by it?
The single biggest breakthrough came when our product development people got it. And that, that person asking, let's do something and saving 1 ounce of nylon, that was like the first eye-opening experience of what doing something means. And but when our product development people came aboard, and the thing that brought them aboard completely was Janine Benyus's book, Biomimicry. When the head of design read Biomimicry, it was to him exactly what Hawkins' book had been to me. And one day he challenged his design team to go into the forest and see how nature would design a floor covering. He said, don't come back with leaf designs. That's not what I mean. Come back with nature's design principles. And they spent a day studying the forest floor. How can you spend a day doing that? And the stream beds. And it finally dawned on them, there's no two things alike here. There's no two sticks, no two stones, no two leaves, no two anything. There's chaos here, yet there's a pleasant orderliness in this chaos. And they came back to the design studio and they designed a carpet tile such that the face designs of no two tiles were identical. All was similar, but every one was different from every other one. Now, how different is that from the established industrial paradigm that every mass-produced item must be the cookie-cutter same? Even Six Sigma uniformity, thank you very much. Well, this totally defied Six Sigma. And we introduced the product under the name Entropy, suggesting disorder. And in a year and a half, it went to the top of the bestseller list, faster than any other product ever had in the company's history. And the advantages were just overwhelming. For example, there was almost no off quality in production. Inspectors could not find defects among this deliberate imperfection of no two tiles alike. The installers could install tiles very quickly because they didn't have to get the pile nap all running uniformly. The less uniform, the better. So he could just take tiles out of the box and install them the way they came out of the box. And then the user could actually replace an individual damaged tile without getting that sore thumb effect, when everything's perfectly uniform and you plop this new one down among the old, it stands out like a sore thumb. All that went away. Even die lots merged indistinguishably, which meant you didn't have to keep extra tiles on the shelf, waiting to be used from the original die lot. So advantage after advantage after advantage emerged, which accounted, largely for the success. And then one day I said, I wonder if there's not something else that explains the success of Entropy. And then I read of a woman on the environmental speaking circuit who begins every speech by having her audience close their eyes and picture that ideal place in their mind's eye, that ideal comfort zone of peace and tranquility and creativity and comfort, that perfect comfort zone. Want to try it here? Humor me. Close your eyes. Everybody, close your eyes. And in your mind's eye, picture your ideal comfort zone, that place of peace and repose and tranquility where you can go to think creatively, your perfect comfort zone. Now hold your hand high if you're somewhere outdoors. Now open your eyes and look around. It's staggering. Nearly every person, nearly every hand in this room is up, and it happens everywhere on earth. We humans gravitate to nature for that ideal comfort zone, and somehow I think Entropy brings outdoors indoors in a subliminal way.